Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we have topping our headlines tonight. The Alberta government introduces a new deficit budget, indicating more deficits on the horizon in years to come. Plus, Bill and Hillary Clinton testify about connections to Jeffrey Epstein, while the head of the WEF resigns over his contact with a convicted sex offender. And a Mexican couple share their shocking story about a life in a world controlled by drug cartels and why they fled.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Albertans were bracing themselves for a deficit budget, and today, Danielle Smith's United Conservative government delivered. Finance Minister Nate Horner announced Thursday that budgets for the next 3 years will include deficits of $9.4 billion, $7.6 billion, and $6.9 billion, with a plan to return to a balanced budget by the 2028-29 year. And as always, much of that will depend on the price of oil.
On the energy side, oil prices are expected to remain under pressure in 2026 as global crude oil supply is expected to outpace demand. We are forecasting WTI to average $60.50 per barrel for 26-27. This is significantly lower than the $71 per barrel we were forecasting for the same year in budget 2025. And we anticipate that every $1 drop in the West Texas Intermediate price to carve out about $680 million of our bottom line. Additionally, we expect highly unpredictable U.S. trade policy in 2026. Despite this, oil production and exports continue to expand right here at home. In 2026, Alberta's bitumen and conventional oil production is expected to average a record 4.2 million barrels a day. And we're expecting to see more egress capacity to get our production to market.
Budget 2026 will make a historic $34.4 billion investment in healthcare, which includes $13.8 billion in 2026 to 27 to operate and expand hospitals, surgeries, emergency services, and diagnostics, plus almost $2.5 billion over 3 years for emergency health services. The province had already announced a $7.7 billion commitment to physicians. The budget also commits a record $10.8 billion to education in 2026 to 27 to hire more than 3,000 new teachers and 1,500 new educational assistants over the next 3 years. $1.4 billion over 3 years will go to address class sizes and complexity. And as expected, the opposition NDP is more than a little concerned about where the province is headed.
This budget doesn't help. This budget doesn't reduce your cost of living. It actually makes life more expensive. This budget doesn't fix the healthcare crisis. This budget doesn't solve crowding in emergency rooms. This budget doesn't get you a family doctor. This budget doesn't improve classrooms. This budget doesn't build new ones for students already crowded into the system. In fact, this budget takes us from the lowest per student funding on education in the country to just about the lowest per student funding on education in the country. And in order to deliver so few results, Danielle Smith and the UCP have saddled future generations, our kids and our grandkids, with billions and billions of dollars of debt with no path to balance.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is officially starting his 10-day international trip to India, Australia, and Japan as his government works to diversify trade. Carney left Ottawa this morning and is heading to Mumbai for his first stop. Early next week, he'll address both houses of Australia's Parliament in Canberra, making him the first Canadian Prime Minister to do so in 20 years. Carney will later head to Tokyo to talk about clean energy, critical minerals, and food security. Meantime, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre laid out his vision for the Canada-U.S. relationship in a speech Thursday to the Economic Club of Canada in Toronto. He took aim at the Liberal government's efforts to improve relations with China and at Prime Minister Carney's widely praised speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos in January.
We should not declare a permanent rupture with our biggest customer and closest neighbor in favor of a strategic partnership for a new world order with Beijing. Now, we seek no fight with China or its people, who make up a brilliant and extraordinary civilization. But its government and its proxies have kidnapped our citizens, stolen our technology, interfered in our elections, and pushed fentanyl into our streets. Canada should talk and trade where prudent, but never make the mistake of confusing engagement with dependency. China is not a substitute for the United States of America.
Poilievre says the Prime Minister needs to secure an agreement with the Trump administration that restores tariff-free trade. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is testifying before U.S. House lawmakers in New York as part of a congressional investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, starting off 2 days of depositions that will also include former President Bill Clinton. The chair of the House Oversight Committee was asked about Republicans using the Epstein investigation to drag the Clintons through the mud while ignoring other witnesses.
The Democrats voted to subpoena the Clintons. The Democrats voted with the Republicans to hold the Clintons in contempt. So the Democrats have just as many questions for the Clintons as the Republicans. So this isn't a partisan witch hunt.
So in the spirit of bipartisanship, would you then ask the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to come testify? It seems like he has some information.
That's very possible.
Hillary Clinton repeated her demands that reporters be allowed into her deposition after a GOP lawmaker shared a photo of her inside the room. And if reporters aren't allowed in, Democratic lawmakers are demanding that unedited transcripts be released. The president and CEO of the World Economic Forum has resigned after a review into his links to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The forum ordered an independent review of Borja Brende's ties to the disgraced financier following the release of the Epstein files by the U.S. Department of Justice. Brende has acknowledged that he dined with Epstein 3 times between 2018 and 2019 and communicated with him by email and text, but said he was completely unaware of his past criminal activity. The former Norwegian foreign minister says that he regrets not having investigated Epstein more thoroughly. Last week's killing of a Mexican cartel leader unleashed a wave of retaliatory violence that left nervous Canadians sheltering in their hotel rooms. The violence was a message from the Jalisco New Generation cartel that despite the death of its leader, it's very powerful and not going anywhere. For Mexicans, speaking about a cartel means speaking about real violence, threats, and forced displacement. Bridge City News spoke with a Mexican couple who has been living in Lethbridge for the past 2 years. They came to Canada after receiving death threats allegedly linked to the Jalisco New Generation cartel. We are not revealing their identity. We have disguised their voices and blurred their faces.
This cartel is not just working with drugs. They are doing extortions. They are doing illegal mining and illegal logging, the deforestation. People think that this is just like in Jalisco, which is a state in Mexico. But this cartel has operation in all the country. We used to live in the Federal Reserve, and we started doing some activism for taking care of the land. The things they tell us, it was not just stop making noise. Like they start doing a lot of stuff in our property, like burning or shutting down some loggings in our property to damage our property and even like our kids. So that's why we have to leave Mexico. Sometimes they are inside the government, they have people there, they support their elections and they ask for favors. They are doing extortions, like they come with local people that they have some businesses like grocery stores and they ask them for protection. You will have to pay me to keep working, keep living, and your family will save. Human trafficking is another thing they do. In Mexico, there is a huge problem of people is missing. Even there are some moms in Mexico City trying to find their kids because they use them like for sexual trafficking, organ trafficking. A cartel is something is destroying our country, like an illness, like a pandemic thing. They don't care if you're a good person, if you don't want to cooperate with them. They just come and do it.
We are concerned about our family, or people that we know and we love in Mexico. We know that the Canadians prefer Puerto Vallarta as a destination, or maybe Cancun and other places. But the recent events just show us that the cartel don't have limits. If they want to attack one tourist zone or people from other countries, they can do it. Like, they will not think twice to do it. So, because they are really powerful, they control too many things like logistic, exportations, real estate.
This is not gonna be done. The death of the nation is not. Someone else is gonna come and try to take his place, and it's gonna be more violence around there.
Experts say while the killing of a cartel leader shows something is being done, it will not curtail the fear and intimidation used by cartels against the Mexican people. Terrifying. The Alberta RCMP Major Crimes Unit is asking for the public's help in locating a suspect wanted in connection with a suspicious death. On the evening of February 4th, fire crews responded to what was reported to be a grass fire south of Eden Valley. But as the fire was put out, it was discovered to be a burned vehicle containing human remains. The victim was identified as a 24-year-old male resident of Calgary. Officers are looking for anyone who has surveillance or dash cam video from February 4th between 7 and 8:30 p.m. in Foothills County on roads near the intersection of Highway 22 and 540 south of Longview. RCMP are specifically looking for footage of a blue-gray 2022 Dodge Ram pickup with a tonneau cover. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Turner Valley RCMP at 403-933 7227 if you wish to remain anonymous. You can also call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. As Ag Expo continues this week at Lethbridge's Trade and Convention Center, a separate event was held on Wednesday aimed at boosting young farmers to help them thrive on their fields. The Young Farmers Summit, hosted by Farm Credit Canada, was a day for the next generation of farmers, food manufacturers, and retailers to hear real-world advice and to network with other professionals and peers. The summit, part of a series of free cross-country events by FCC, is tailored for people under the age of 40 who are pursuing a career in agriculture or transitioning within the industry.
It is harder to make those transitions, so we try to support by having transition services. We have advisors that help have those conversations. The cost of everything is very high, and being able to whether it's acquire land or the cost of machinery or things like that, that's always a concern. Also understanding, managing the finances. They get the how to operate the farm, but how do they, take that, going back to one of the speakers, that CEO mindset and understand their finances. And we want to be a partner at the table for them to help make those transitions as smooth as possible and make sure that everyone kind of understands how they can do it successfully.
And speaking of farming and agriculture, it's time for your Ag Report. Here's Sean Haney with RealAgriculture.com.
There's some major movement on the trade front this week that effectively opens the door to one of the most dynamic markets in the Indo-Pacific. Canada has officially secured a massive expansion of beef and pork access into Indonesia. Now, this isn't just a minor update. We're talking about the removal of residency restrictions on cattle, and for the first time ever, full access for Canadian pork. Indonesia is the fourth largest country on Earth, and with the new CEPA trade agreement in place, nearly all tariffs on our red meat are heading to zero. Coming off of a successful audit of our facilities, 9 Canadian plants are now cleared to be shipping to Indonesia. In a world where we're constantly looking for ways to diversify away from trade barriers, Indonesia is a massive win, and only a week after the Americans announced their own market access. It's a billion-dollar market that's growing fast, and it puts Canadian beef and pork in a prime position to compete in the heart of Southeast Asia. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney of Real Agriculture.
The University of Lethbridge is championing research as they launch a new research and creativity activities plan. The plan is meant to reflect the university's reputation of hosting world-class research opportunities with many partnerships. It's built around key fundamentals meant to spark ideas and realize impact. The program that revealed the plan also recognized new Canada Research chairs and celebrated an undergraduate student and Rhodes Scholar.
There is so much amazing world-class research taking place at this university, and I think sometimes people wonder what's happening behind the walls of these buildings on the other side of the river. We are leading the world in so many ways, contributing to really important questions and answering hard questions, coming up with great ideas that are being well-funded, and we're just so proud and of the support of our community. Every student at the University of Lethbridge has an opportunity for experiential learning, and research is a really big part of that. So our undergraduate researchers tend to be performing closer to what a master's level student would be doing at a lot of other universities because they get to work side by side with world-class researchers, the experts in their field, and we give them full access to the labs, the studios, and the facilities we have on campus.
Well, congratulations to them. Woods Homes is gearing up for their annual Coldest Night of the Year walk in Lethbridge this weekend. The annual charity walk raises funds for youth experiencing homelessness, hunger, and personal crisis, including the local emergency shelter. The walk will be held at Henderson Lake this Saturday with 2-kilometer or 5-kilometer walking options. Carrie Dahl with Woods Homes says they've seen an uptick in participation each year, and their personal goal this year is $20,000.
This event is held all over, but it's really special to us in Lethbridge because we don't have a lot of supports available to youth in the community, and there's lots of barriers that they face, from homelessness to food insecurity to all sorts of things that these youth face. A lot of our programming supports youth with employment, life skills, resource navigation in the community, and just overall helping them transition in that important piece of their life into adulthood. Besides this event, you can always go to our website, www.woodshomes.ca. There's lots of ways to support our organization and just learn more about the programming that we have in Lethbridge.
The walk begins this Saturday at 5 p.m., starting at the Nico Yuko Bunka Center with a check-in beginning at 4 p.m. And bundle up because Saturday will reach a high of only -7 Celsius. New Alberta legislation aims to protect tourists from deceptive hotel fees. The bill would crack down on the way destination marketing fees are charged and where they go. It would force accommodations to disclose the full price of a stay at the time of booking rather than when visitors check out. Tourism Minister Andrew Boychenko says the legislation ensures people who pay those fees know where the money is going. A new report says commercial real estate activity is expected to pick up this year, in part due to return to office mandates. Royal LePage's 2026 commercial real estate report is forecasting that the ongoing recovery will continue. However, they say it will be gradual, with more companies dropping the remote work models implemented during the pandemic. A survey by the firm of its commercial real estate professionals found 42% expect vacancy rates for office space to decrease in their market this year. If you're moving out of province for school or a new job, you'll need to look up local laws when it comes to rental agreements. Tenancy laws vary by province, and educational resources are easily accessible online for renters to learn about their rights and the basics of a typical rental agreement. A lawyer recommends consulting with professionals for advice to understand your status and obligations under the agreement when facing an issue. There are many resources to help, including publicly available legislation and sample agreements, explainer materials in plain language, legal clinics, and tenants organizations. And now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX is up 374 to 34,501. The Dow is up 17 to 49,499. The S&P 500 was down 37 to 6,908. And the Nasdaq was down 273 to 22,878. West Texas Intermediate oil was down a cent to $65.41 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 3 cents to $2.83 US. Gold was up $19.91 to $51.8474 US an ounce, and silver was down 94 cents to $89.26 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.67 per bushel, barley is at $6, canola is at $15.72, and corn is at $7.01 per bushel. Live cattle were unchanged at $2.46. Feeder cattle were down $4.65 to $361.65 for the March contract, and lean hogs April contract was down 47 cents to $95.72. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $73.10 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's government has introduced a new budget that promises more money for health and education, but also an eye-popping deficit of $9.4 billion. Finance Minister Nate Horner says coping with a rising population and lower than expected oil prices is putting the squeeze on Alberta's bottom line. The government isn't projecting a balanced budget until 2028-29. As parts of Mexico recover from the chaos that ensued after a cartel drug boss was killed, it leaves some to question the security within our own borders. David Lease, president of the Frontier Center for Public Policy, joins me to discuss this issue and why it matters when it comes to trade talks with the U.S. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca, or our YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.